All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's BeWell Lunch and Learn. It's hard to believe that it's November 1st, and that means the holidays are quickly approaching. So we thought this would be a great time to do a little session on holiday budgeting. Michelle Zellner is joining us today, and if you've joined us in the past, you may recognize her. She's done quite a few Lunch and Learn sessions for us and always does a fabulous job. So we are excited to welcome her back today. Before I hand it over to her, I just want to give you a few heads up. The first one being that these are recorded. So if you're unable to stay for the whole time or would just like to refer back to these at any point, you will be getting the recording in a follow-up email should be coming out in the next week or so. We also put the recordings on our BeWell website, so be sure to check out there as well. Second, Michelle loves an interactive audience, so feel free to use the Q&A, the chat box feature. We'll try to answer as many questions as time permits. So with that, I will pass this over to Michelle and she'll get us started on holiday budgeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. Welcome, everybody. It's personally, I love flipping the calendar to November. So yay, November's here, which yes, does mean the holidays are here. So we should have a lively conversation on this topic. Whether it's holiday budgeting or budgeting in general, I think it's just something that most of us could be a little more intentional about. So clearly your relationship with money and your attitude about the holidays and all of that plays a role in this. So as we go through the content, just remember that everybody comes with a different perspective, comes from a different upbringing, comes from different priorities and values. So there really is no right or wrong way to do any of this. What I hope is that by the end of it, you have some clarity for yourself as far as what are you comfortable with, right? And maybe how far out of that comfort zone are you okay being? If not very far, then we really got to figure out how to stay within that zone, right? So as Angela said, I like them to be interactive. Let's use that chat box to have some great dialogue. And I would like to get started, maybe just by even getting a gauge of the audience. So let's do scale of 1 to 10, your enjoyment of the holiday season. It's very broad. So scale of 1 to 10, 1, I wish we could just fast forward and it's January 10th. 10 is, oh my goodness, I live for this time of year. It is the best time of year. There is not a single thing I do not enjoy about it. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you with the holidays? I would say there was a time in my life where I would have put this at about a 3. Yeah, not a fan for a lot of reasons, which I've probably detailed somewhere in a blog or in my book or somewhere, so I won't go into it. I have learned to embrace the holidays. I still would kind of like to fast forward a little bit, but not nearly like I used to. So looks like we have everything from a 5 to a 9 exclamation point. Love that. Excellent. Now, so I got a lot of holiday lovers in here. Okay, so let me ask you this. Is there anything about the holidays that causes you distress or excess stress? Here's the way when I started to shift my whole attitude about the holidays, one thing that really helped me was to imagine myself waking up on January 1st. How did I want to be? How did I want to feel? How did I want to look? What did I want my bank account to, reflect? Because one of the reasons I didn't like the holidays was because I would wake up January 1st and think, ugh, really? I ate too much. I drank too much. I didn't exercise enough. I spent too much. And now here I am. Ugh. And waking up too many years feeling that way, it really started to give me like just this disdain for the whole experience itself. And I would rather just avoid it so I could just wake up in January feeling great. Well, then, duh, I'm still in charge of what I do during this time. So one way that I got to a different place with the holidays was really to imagine, how do you want to look and feel? And how do you want your bank account to look and feel in January? And then recognize that everything I do from maybe today until December 31st is going to contribute to that outcome. So when you can be forward thinking, and if you ever do like open up that credit card bill in January, like, oh boy, how did that happen? And if you have endless amounts of money, it doesn't matter. But if that is causing stress or to not pay other bills or causing tension in a relationship or causing something, then it's probably helpful if that does change. So anybody have any stressors or distress about the holidays? I haven't seen anybody confess in the chat box. All right, well, let us talk about the big picture, right? And this really does go to the bigger conversation about your relationship and your attitude about money. And I mean, I tell you, I've been in all spaces with relatively little money and then kind of an abundance. And then I've realized that my abundance is pittance to somebody else's abundance. Everybody still has a certain attitude or relationship with money. More money doesn't mean you don't have stress and worries. So when we're thinking about, where are we going to devote our resources? The resources we have, time, money, and energy. We have those resources always. Now, at various times in our lives, we might have more of some than others. And yet, how we spend that time, money, and energy is going to have a dramatic impact, not only obviously on the outcome, but on us as humans, right? Our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And so that is something when we look at the big picture and maybe not just on the spending at the holidays, we have to just be intentional and decide, does it matter? I think, Crystal, you're exactly right. I totally connect with that. And that's just part of the world we live in. And it is really up to us as individuals to decide if we're going to participate in that or not, right? And not give in to the pressure to participate in it if we don't want to, if that really doesn't align with our goals, values, and priorities. So, again, when you think about the big picture, and then how does the budget for the holidays factor into all of these? Because if I am spending a lot at the holidays, maybe that means I'm not putting it to my emergency fund, or maybe I don't have, the money to buy that new car that I really probably need, or whatever the case is, right? These resources are finite. We can generate more, but once we spend them, we don't get them back. And a lot of it really does go to the psychology of money. So, does money make the holidays better? Clearly, when we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean, of course, for somebody who is living in poverty or paycheck to paycheck, or really doesn't have the funds to have something special for their kids at the holiday, of course, money at the holidays can make that better, right? So again, it's all relative, and our perspective on this really does play a role in how we answer these questions. Money doesn't make things better, but money can make things more convenient, right? It can allow us to maybe do some things that if I don't have money, I can't do. So yeah, I mean, to some degree, I think it probably does. And it's probably, something that you have to decide. Do you have enough money to enjoy the holidays in the way that you would like to enjoy them? And if not, again, how much out of my comfort zone am I willing to go to enjoy the holidays that I want to enjoy? And at what cost is that going to come? I think you are not alone on this. Husband's work schedule and the empty nest. So those are some stressors or things that you don't like about the holidays. And then the in-laws have a different outlook than my family. We felt we have to match what our in-laws spend on us, and we can't afford that. I would guarantee you are not alone on that for sure. Yep. So this goes back to understanding your priorities, values, principles. And if we feel like you have to match that, well, what would happen if you don't, right? What would happen if you don't match that? Are they going to judge you? Are they going to care? Or is that just your own perceived expectation? So some of our stressors we actually create for ourselves. It might not even exist. Maybe it does exist. Maybe they are going to judge you. Who cares? I mean, really. I mean, if they're not paying off your credit card bill, then they can judge all they want. It's me who has to pay that bill. So this is the reality. And I think that's where we can, kind of fall into those traps for sure, when we are trying to live up to things that are not comfortable in our reality. And at some point we get to a place where we just acknowledge that, and it's totally fine. Have your financial circumstances changed? Maybe they're in a better place, maybe they're not. And once they change, do other things change? I love the latte factor. What is your latte factor? What does that mean? That is it's a little bit here, it's a little bit there. I mean, I think lattes these days, my gosh, I think they're like $7. So $7 here, $7 there, all of a sudden it's real money, right? So are we frivolously and mindlessly spending, and oh wow, that actually adds up to a lot of money, and is that necessary? Are you motivated to change your money belief system, if that is maybe part of the equation, right? Our money mindset, I think, that again is a much bigger conversation, but it certainly plays a huge role when it comes to what we want to spend when it comes to the holidays. So going to the point of a few of the comments in the chat, right? Reality check. Let's have that reality check. And your reality is your reality. And sometimes it does not match somebody else's reality. And sometimes we create someone's reality, we make it up, we judge it, we assume we know what it is based on what we see on the outside. All that matters is what you are willing and able to do. That's it. And learning to say no. Maybe you have to learn to say no to yourself. Maybe you learn to say no to the kids, or to the pressure of commercialization that goes on in our society. Maybe you learn to say no to all the, overextending, overcommitting, over scheduling, because all of that probably costs money too. I'm curious if anybody struggles with that word, no. Anybody have a hard time saying no? And if so, well, two parts. Who do you have a hard time saying no to? And why? Why do you have a hard time saying no? And I guess 3 parts. Does it matter? I mean, maybe you can say yes to everything and it's great. There is no physical, mental, or emotional hardship, physical, mental, or emotional, or financial hardship by saying yes to everything. I mean, if you can do that, you should say yes to everything. Most people cannot say yes to everything and have no physical, mental, emotional, or financial hardship. So going back to the reality of, okay, it's always going to come at a cost, right? Every choice I make is going to cost me something. Maybe it's a financial cost, maybe it's an emotional cost, maybe it's a physical cost, maybe it's costing my time, my energy, right? Every choice I make costs me something. So what am I getting for that cost? Maybe I'm getting joy. Maybe I'm getting satisfaction. Maybe I'm getting a sense of contribution. I hope you're getting something for that cost. What really is a waste of resources is when we spend our resources and we don't feel like we've gotten value for it. So that reality check and learning to say no is going to be probably really important. A couple people have a hard time saying no. Work related to jobs, getting better at not overextending myself and speaking up for my needs. Excellent. Yeah, it's a hard word. I'm about to post my November blog and I am titling part of it No-vember. See how I did that? Giving you permission to say no to overthinking, overcommitting, overspending, overindulging. And it's a hard word, right? It just is. Getting feedback. So who are we going to get feedback from? Maybe from an unbiased third party. Maybe we just have to have honest conversations, right? And again, let's have the reality, the realistic conversation. It is no shock that finances are still the number one thing that couples fight about. And it's really hard when two people have two different belief systems, when two people have different money mindsets, when two people have different perspectives on what we should do. Somehow we got to find a way to mesh and merge and compromise so that nobody gets everything that they want, but nobody gets nothing that they want. And I mean, that's a whole other kind of, hard conversation to have. This is great. Can't say no to myself when spending on my kids and granddaughters. Feel like I'm making up for 10 years as a single parent. Couldn't do for them like I wanted to. I also overindulge because my kids are in Texas and I don't see them often. So I call, divorce, whether it's divorce or not. But when I was a personal trainer, I had a lot of divorced dads, and it was divorced dad guilt. Like that's what it was, right? So they're trying to make up by buying all this stuff. Hopefully we realize that stuff is not necessarily what they want. Sometimes it is, but we do the best we can in the real lives that we live. And if, if there is no physical, mental, emotional, or financial hardship by doing all of that, then do it. I think that's a great point. The hard part is what you have done historically isn't what we are doing today. I think that's a really good point that, as things change, which is why having honest conversations, I find, is very helpful. I know personally, I grew up with parents who talked about money openly. We didn't get whatever we wanted. There were choices. And at the point where we were old enough to understand, well, we can't do it all. Well, that's not true. We can, we're just not going to, because it's not worth it. Because that means we're going to go into debt, and that's just not something my parents are willing to do. So we had those conversations where we got to help decide what we were going to do as a family. What's more important? You can have this and this and this, or we can go on this trip. We can do these things, or you can have this. We're not going to do it all. So let's have conversations about what that looks like and be intentional, and it should matter, right? If we're spending our resources, it should matter. And, I bet, the kids and grandkids, and depends on their ages. I mean, when I see just absurd amounts of money being spent on a 1-year-old, that 1-year-old doesn't care. I mean, it would probably rather play with the box, right? So I think it is kind of holding back on that impulse, and maybe even the other perspective. What are we teaching kids and grandkids? That we just give them everything and that we can make up for things. And this is not judging anyone who does that, because I get it, how that is a feeling like this is why it's hard to not do it. But what is that modeling, right? And is that something that maybe is going to instill a belief or an attitude in them growing up that might then be hard to put in check? I don't know. I do have people in my life who had the kids and the grandkids were spoiled, and now they're a handful, because while that was what used to be done, it's not able to be done anymore. And they don't understand why they can't have whatever they want, because they've always had whatever they want. So, maybe that will give you some permission to learn to say no about the overindulging, if it's not, if it's really not helpful or necessary. Good point. Set the expectations, and when it can't happen, it becomes disappointment. I think, again, these are hard conversations, but recognizing that life is hard, and it's hard now or harder later. That's one of my mottos. When times are good, maybe we do a little extra to celebrate that, because we can, and we're grateful for it. Recognizing that, can we have just as good a time without all of this? Paring down some of that. And maybe there are some resources out there, right? If we really are struggling in some kind of way and don't feel like we can, enjoy the holiday the way we'd like to. I know there are lots and lots of resources. Everybody probably just needs to explore what you happen to have in your particular areas. Let's see. Recognize that it can be fun when removing the pressure of expensive gifts. Our family has an exchange that is themed this year. It's for summer vacation, sail swim trunks for the guys, luggage tags and such, and stockings. But our family has always shared the belief to give before receiving. And that's a $25 donation to charity of choice that we share at Thanksgiving. I think that precedent sets the mood to not be so gift focused, to be thankful. That's beautiful. I have another group, a lady, they every year when the family comes together, they always do crazy socks. Like that's their thing, is everybody buys a pair of crazy socks, goes in a bucket, and everybody pulls out the socks. And then the following year at the holiday, you wear the socks that you got. And it's fun and it's funny and it's goofy. And I'll tell you, if anybody needs socks, check out johnscrazysocks.com. Can listen to my podcast episode that I did with them in March or April. Amazing company and hilarious socks. And who doesn't need funny socks? So it's a way to be fun and lighthearted and, not have this big pressure of the gifts, because at some point we either have the ability to get what we want ourselves, or do we really need it? I don't, the whole gift thing, especially when it comes to, adults. I had that hard conversation a long time ago with adults in my life. Like, look, nobody needs another candle. Okay. You're just giving to give. And I don't need it. You don't need it. Oh, I got to get the perfect gift. And it's silly. So let's just stop doing it. And yeah, maybe let's take that and donate to your favorite cause, or let's go have an experience together. Let's be intentional about the time that we can spend. Because there are people in our own lives too who have a very different financial status than maybe you do. And it can become really difficult. And yet I'm not going to try to match what you can do, because I can't do that. Back when I was a personal trainer, this is one of the reasons I don't love the holidays. It was my biggest stressor. Like literally, what do I get these people? I want to show them that I appreciate them as people, as clients, as support in all ways. And yet you have more money than I can ever imagine. So what could I possibly get you that you're going to even care, that matters? And and I tried to be thoughtful and unique and it was just so much stress. And the way that changed is literally one year, I found this candle, this gorgeous $80 candle, which I would never in a million years spend $80 on a candle. It's nonsense. But I knew this client, it was so up her alley and it was going to be beautiful and perfect. And I was so proud of myself that I found the perfect candle. So excited. Go to her house. We exchanged gifts. She got me the exact same candle in the same scent and everything. And she too was like, oh my gosh, Michelle is going to love this. She would never buy this for herself, but I know she will love this. It'll look beautiful in her home. I'm so proud I get to give her something that I know she'll love. And we laughed and laughed and laughed about that. And that's where we were like, nobody needs another candle. So then I started having hard conversations with the other people in my life about it. And it became very easy, honestly. So, the expectations, I think it's so critical for you to be thinking about that and put yourself in that January mode, right? This is also a time of year when we just, oh, it's the holidays. I mean, how many times are we going to hear that? Oh, it's the holidays. Doesn't matter what you spend, doesn't matter what you eat, doesn't matter what you drink. It's the holidays. Except it matters. I mean, it all counts. And then that's why we have January, right? So you get to drive this train. You really do. You are the project manager of this project. So you have to think about, what do you want the outcome of the project to look like? And then what are the steps along the way I am going to need to take in order to have that outcome? What are the obstacles to those steps that I'm going to be faced with? And what is my strategy to deal with the obstacle? Everybody's obstacles are different. And your obstacles this year might be different from what they were 5 years ago or, yesterday. Who knows? But I think that is something when you really are thoughtful about all of this, it can set you up for a much more enjoyable season and experience and a nice outcome in January. So I'm curious if I have any perfectionists in the room. Uh, Man, this whole idea of the perfect holiday. You know what's funny about that? Perfect to one person is like the worst holiday in the world to somebody else. And if you happen to be sharing that holiday together, I mean, that doesn't even work. So I think it's helpful if you can for the people who you share holidays with, just actually describe what is your idea of the perfect holiday. And then you come together and you compare and you're like, wow, we all have the same idea of the perfect holiday. This is perfect. It'll be super easy because we're all going to make everybody happy because we all like exactly the same thing. I wonder how many of that actually happens. Probably not many. What you might find is, oh, well, I really want it this way and somebody else really wants it this way. And so that means someone's not going to be happy. But I'm going to do my best to please everybody, except that's not possible, right? So I think you have a couple of perfectionists. And yeah, a lot of effort into the holidays, and again, if the time, effort, energy, and money you put into it does not cause you any physical, mental, emotional, or financial discomfort, then you should do it. I know most people, it causes them a lot of discomfort on almost all of those levels. And I know a lot of people come to that point where they realize that nobody even cares. Put all this time and effort, money into being perfect, and either it's not someone else's definition of perfect, so what was the point? Or they don't even care. And so then is that a waste of your resources? I don't know, right? These are just things for everybody to kind of think about and take some of the pressure off yourself to hopefully get to actually be a participating member of this time of season. Um, yeah, I'm with you on. I don't hate the holidays. I used to, but I have come to embrace them to the best of my ability, and they're certainly a lot easier than they used to be. And a lot of it is about our attitude and our mindset. They're going to happen whether we like it or not. This is not changing, right? This is the way of the world. The only thing I am in control of is how I approach it and how I choose to experience it. We are all each in charge of our own holiday experience because you control what you think, feel, say, and do. You don't control what anybody else thinks or feels or says or does. So I know that can be hard because a lot of times the conflict is coming from others, and yet I'm only in charge of me. Let's see, this is great. Somebody said that what has helped is started to buy gifts early. All my purchases have been local or handmade, so my funds go back into local economy. That's beautiful. If and when I do give a gift, it is I call it a consumable, something that somebody will actually use, because nobody just needs stuff to have around the house. And I make really delicious homemade nut butter. So that's kind of become like the thing and the tradition. Now, anybody who's worthy of an actual gift, and I'm joking when I say worthy, but anyone that I really want to give an expression in a tangible way, they get a batch of homemade nut butter and they love it. And it's super easy. And I love making it. So that's something I have found that's my thing and gets me to check that box. So to your point, right, the planning and starting early, setting realistic limits, we have to have the conversations with the family. So for the one who has the in-laws that you feel like you got to match, I'm just curious, like, is that your own perception or, and can we have the honest conversation? And can we maybe, show our love in a different way than, oh, it's this, grand gesture of a price tag of something. Maybe there are non-gift items, practical items. Obviously, there's going to be resistance for some people. And yet it all goes back to what are you comfortable with and how far out of your comfort zone are you willing to get? I think the actual budgeting as well, budget your time, money, and energy. You have to budget all of those things because it can get way out of control really, really quickly, as we know. Wow, interesting. So mentioned that just buying things for the kids and was told absolutely not, you need to buy for everyone. You know what? Here's the thing. You are an adult and you don't need to do anything that somebody else tells you to do. I would push back on it. I would say it's going to be hard now or harder later. Keep that motto in mind. Hard now or harder later. If you go with the easy choice now, which is to do as you are told, it's going to be harder later, because now this is going to go on forever and ever, and you're going to feel like, maybe going into debt or whatever, the financial pressure, it's not going to be good for you physically, mentally, emotionally, or financially. It's also not going to be good for those relationships because you're going to build a lot of resentment. Hard now is you put your foot down, you set your boundaries, and you say, no, do it. And I want to find out how that works out. It's going to be hard. You're going to get resistance, no doubt about it. But that's the thing. People will tell me, well, I have to because so-and-so makes me. You are an adult. You are in charge of you. You are in charge of what you think, feel, see, and do. Nobody can make you do anything. You do it because it's easier to do it than it is to get the judgment or whatever. And I'm not saying you, I'm just saying, right? That's why we do things that we don't feel comfortable doing, because it's easier in the moment to do it, but then it's harder later. So yeah, I would love to follow up with you on how that can work. Traditions. Do you have traditions? Do you like traditions? Are there new traditions we can start? Sometimes we do get lost in all of the hubbub of it, and we maybe lose sight of some of those things that are really special and important and memorable. And maybe the tradition is we do it different every year. Maybe that's the tradition. We are non-traditional. And clearly the dynamics that you have with the other people that you're sharing this time of year with play a huge role in all of this. But I think what's really important is to remember that you will never, ever, ever, ever please everybody, ever, ever. So relieve yourself of that burden. And you think about what's important to you. And you think about what's important to your family. And how can I do that to the best of my ability? Recognizing that what's important to me might not be important to the other people in my life. There was a long time where, again, a big reason why I didn't like the holidays. I grew up in Wisconsin, great place to be from, moved away as soon as I could, went to school in Hawaii. And the first year I went back because we have to do Christmas at home because that's my sister. My sister is very sentimental, very traditional. Every year we went out in the yard and we cut down our tree and we decorated, and we had to do all the ornaments that we made as grade schoolers, and they were so ugly. And I wanted the perfectly aesthetically pleasing tree. She wanted the bubble lights and the this, and I was like, oh, it's so ugly. So we had to do everything because that's the way Christmas is. I'm like, well. And so when I moved away and I went back for the first time after I was in Hawaii for college, and I spent 3 weeks in Wisconsin in December and January, I never did that again. It's like, this is never happening again. And so then I decided that I get to spend Christmas the way I want to, because now I'm an adult. And if y'all want to spend Christmas with me, you can come to Hawaii. And we did that. And I'm very fortunate that my dad traveled for his job and had tons of miles. So a lot of times we didn't, they didn't have to pay for tickets. And yet my sister hated it. She hated Christmas in Hawaii because it's not Christmas. So she was so hung up on the traditions of doing what we used to do. And yet life isn't what it used to be. We don't live in that house anymore. We haven't lived in that house for years. So yet you want to try to recreate something that is impossible because it's not there. So maybe it is letting go of things that are no longer possible and starting new ones. Certainly it's about being flexible. There were years where I didn't want to go back, but I did anyway, because I learned, you know what? It's not all about me. I know it's a shame, but it's not. So when she moved and had her own house, we went and had Christmas in Michigan. But I also know my capacity, not for my family. Love my family, could spend many, 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 many days around them. Capacity for being in the cold, dark, being surrounded by food that I want to eat, but I don't want to eat because I know what that leads to. I know my threshold. And so I put a boundary and okay, I'm going to come for 4 days. Oh, honey, stay longer. You can try to guilt me all you want. You can have me for 4 days or you can have me for 0 days. And it's hard, right? And then I used to get mad, like, oh, stop it, quit bugging me to stay long. And then I shifted my perspective. I'm really grateful that I have people who want me to be there longer. But I also know that this is the best for all of us, because the longer I stay, the less enjoyable it's going to be for everybody. So, all of this just goes back to doing the best you can in the real life that you live, setting boundaries, upholding your boundaries, understanding that there is compromise that might need to happen. And when you are enforcing a boundary, somebody's not going to be happy about it. And that's okay. That's up for them to figure out. Let's see. That's a good question with the in-laws. Yeah, should my husband or do I have to have the conversation? I always shy away from having the tough discussions because I don't want to seem like the outsider trying to take her son away or change things. I'm curious how long you've been married. And perhaps you go as a united front. Obviously, you have the conversation with your husband first. And hopefully he's on the same page as you about this. And then, yeah, if he's not willing to create a boundary with his family, then that might be something you as a couple are going to need to work on. So perhaps you go as a united front, or, he just lays down the law and says, you know what, here's the deal. This is where we are. And this is what we want for our lives. And it's going to be hard. There's no way around that. It is. Somebody said, I'm just going to say the mother-in-law is annoying. Absolutely. Yep, I agree. And sadly, that happens a lot, right? All of this discontent happens when other family members want things to be the way they want it to be. But you are adults. You've been together long enough. You can create your own lives and your own traditions and figure out the way forward for yourselves that you are going to be comfortable with. And yeah, it's hard for sure. All right. How do we pay for it? Well, you should first, again, have in mind, what are all the things that you have to spend on, right? What are you going to spend on? Gifts, travel, eating out. People are coming to visit. Well, that's a lot of extra food. Maybe, you got to get the house clean. Maybe, I don't know, right? So let's actually list it out, and the details matter. So we should think about, okay, what overall, how much money are we willing to spend for all this to happen? What's realistic? Let's pick a number. And then we'll have to see if we are somewhat in line and we can actually make that happen. And, obviously we shouldn't hopefully be spending money we don't have. So maybe we can tap into rewards programs. We can get in on deals. If you buy a gift card, you get $25 of a gift card to spend later. So get creative and explore some of these things if you can. Maybe we can use different rewards programs that we have. But I definitely encourage people to try to not spend money you don't have. That's only going to cause issues later, right? Easy now, harder later. So really be thinking and thoughtful, and clearly with the cost of everything having gone up in the last year, you might not be able to get all the things you had anticipated getting or thought you could get. Or maybe you haven't been super tuned in as to how expensive things have gotten, and now you're going to have a little sticker shock. So stay on top of that now so that you can adjust your budget accordingly if necessary. And, maybe we get really tightened up right now. Like, okay, yeah, I don't need to get the coffee every day. And instead, I'm going to put that to the holiday fund. We don't need to go out to dinner every Friday night. Let's just put that money towards the holiday fund. the other places that we spend money obviously are then going to take away from what we can afford to do over the holidays. So really pin down what's important, I think, and then obviously have the conversation with the other people that you are going to be spending the money with or on, and see and how you're going to keep track of that and be dedicated to it. I mean, the self-management piece of this is really important, because it's easy to set a budget and then be like, oh, it's the holidays. I mean, I know we've all said it, and I want you to remember that it all counts. So think about the January version of yourself. Do you really need it? Whenever you are about to spend anything, time, money, or energy, you should be able to identify what value are you getting from spending that time, money, and energy. Does it matter? Is it important? Is this worth it? Right? When we're making these little impulse purchases, is it worth it? Does anyone care? Maybe they do. Maybe the value you get is it just makes you feel good. Okay, great. Then we should do it, as long as we're ready for maybe not feeling good because we've done that too many times, right? So it's really about being mindful and intentional. It's what all of this is, being mindful and intentional, and setting yourself up for success. If you really do want to get clear on this, I think it is very helpful to keep track of the spending. So the envelope method is super helpful. Just grab envelopes, and this is what you spend on food. This is what you spend on gifts. This is what you spend on travel. This is what you spend on the gift wrap, right? There's the gift. And then there's the $5 gift bag you have to put it in. Like, oh yeah, that $5 and that $5 and that $5 and that. Wow, okay, there's $40 I just spent on gift bags, right? It all counts, all that money, it's real. So make the envelope method, think about, who and what and how that's going to look, and then get creative, find the discount places, shop online, shop in bulk, do what you can to manage your budget to the best of your ability. All right, understanding the marketplace. So I don't know that anybody understands this marketplace anymore. But figure out, again, where, if you want to spend that time on the front end to save you time, money, energy, stress, and poor choices on the back end. That's generally the way things go in life, right? If we are rushing around making those last minute decisions, last minute purchases, that's almost always where everything just blows up, right? All of a sudden the budget's blown, my energy is expended, my everything is overloaded, and now I'm like, oh well, I'll worry about it in January. Spend the time on the front end, which, I mean, I personally love that you have scheduled this November 1st. I get a lot of people who schedule this like December 15th. And I'm like, kind of late, a little late, but okay, right? You spend this time, pace yourself, figure it out, carve out some actual time, maybe on the weekend, to sit down and think through your plan specifically, and look at the calendar to think of, okay, when am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Who am I going to do this with? Where am I going to do this? Can I even do all of this? When it comes to maybe spending our energy and our time, think about all the extras that are happening, right? Oh, there's a party, so I need maybe a new pair of shoes, or maybe I need to get my nails done, or maybe I need to get, the nice shave or whatever, right? The extra stuff that we spend to do the things that we do. Maybe I'm traveling, so I need this piece of luggage, or I need all these extra things that we don't think about holiday spending, and yet here it is. I'm spending it now, and because of a way that I want to enjoy my holidays. So really look at the big picture, and everything you do between today and whenever you decide your holidays end, like that's what we're planning for and budgeting for here. So you think about, again, is this worth it? And you have to answer that question. A couple of different resources you might want to explore, see if you have anything there that you can find. And, I would say with all of these and anything, just make sure you read the fine print. and plan for that. Sometimes when we're kind of in a rush or we're finding something that looks really great, and then we're like, oh yeah, that wasn't that great. So make sure you read the fine print, take your time, don't feel rushed. You have plenty of time. Set yourself up for success. Think about, what the overall plan is going to be and how we're going to navigate this. Practice, especially if it is going to involve having some hard conversations with people. Practice. Maybe get your thoughts out of your head first. Write it down. Role play with your best friend or your significant other. Right? Role play. How do we handle this? Maybe you have people in your life that have already had these hard conversations. Get some guidance from them. But practice, and then, think about, okay, the sooner I have it, just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just get it done. The longer we'll have to recuperate from, the pain and discomfort it's going to cause. But I think you have plenty of time to kind of set yourself up for all of this. As you are doing all of that hard work, of course, it's nice to give yourself the gift of self-care, and that's what all of these interactive toolkits are. Some version of self-care. When I talk about holiday budgeting, I want you to remember you, not necessarily, buying yourself something, although if you want to, go for it. I don't think that's a problem. But don't neglect this. Give it everything it needs to be a high-functioning human. Give it rest. That means you're going to have to say no to someone at some point, maybe yourself, so you can actually go to bed. But also give it rest. You don't have to commit yourself to every single invitation and event. And yes, that probably means you're going to let someone down. Maybe that means you're going to have FOMO. But you can't say yes to every single thing and actually enjoy every single thing. Unless every single thing is like 3 things, then you probably can. But for a lot of people, it's this and this and this and this and this. And we're so busy thinking about the next thing we have to do or wishing we were still back at that other thing we were doing. We're not even present and enjoying what we're doing, or we're so run down physically, or we just don't feel good that we're really not enjoying what it is we're there doing. So be picky about the yeses that you hand out, recognizing that this deserves to be said yes to as well, in terms of proper nourishment, proper rest, getting movement, getting outside, just simply time to recharge the batteries. You can't go and come out okay in January. It's probably not going to work that way. So learn how to give yourself that gift of self-care. All right, we have lots of time. So if we have any other questions, feel free to pop those in. And a little info about the EAP, of course, a super valuable resource. So please use it. Familiarize yourself, if you haven't already, with all the resources and different consultations and referrals that are available to you and eligible family members as well. Very easy to get started, 888-881-LINC, or online, supportlink.com, create your account, and your code is PSH. Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas? This is a good time to let's have that conversation.
All right. And as some people are maybe writing their questions, I just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to enjoy this lunch and learn. As I mentioned beforehand, these are recorded, so we will be sending out the recording along with a copy of the slides to your email within the next week. Recordings will also be on our BeWell website as well. If you enjoyed today's session, Michelle is actually joining us again in December, on December 7th for a preventing burnout session. So another good topic to be thinking about this time of year. So looks like someone says very helpful information, took lots of notes that will help me. Thank you. So glad to see you are enjoying the presentation. But if no other questions are coming through, again, we want to thank you, Michelle, another wonderful presentation. And we look forward to seeing you in December. So
yes, my pleasure. Thank you, everybody. If anyone wants to stay connected, feel free to visit my website. I post a blog every month. You can come onto my mailing list. All my podcast episodes are available there as well. So betterbeings.net. betterbeings.net. That's what I get when I try to talk and type at the same time. Yeah, and just a couple final thoughts on this whole time of year, right? I think your attitude and approach, and sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's not. And I think for those who love the holidays, do it up. As long as you are good with the outcome physically, mentally, and emotionally and financially. Maybe there are people who don't love the holidays for a variety of reasons. Maybe there are things that have happened. Maybe personally they're in a very different place. Maybe there's a loss that has occurred. I think everybody gets to go through the holidays however they want. So perhaps somebody isn't feeling the spirit this year. It's okay. It really is okay if you're not feeling the spirit. It totally is. Recognize we still go through this time of year no matter what. So find that support network around you. Find those people who can just let you be you. And you don't have to put on the happy face if you don't feel like it. But also recognize if it is maybe a little more than I just don't feel like it. With winter coming and darker days, seasonal affective disorder is very real. Please get out, get some sunshine, take care of your human. Maybe minimize the alcohol, maybe cut it out altogether. Maybe, minimize the sugar. I'm not say cut it out altogether because that's really hard, but those boundaries for yourself that are really going to be helpful for all of this as well. And if you do feel like, it's a really difficult time for mental and emotional reasons, please reach out to your EAP. Reach out to your friends and family who support you and can help you get through hard times. Because the reality is there are a lot of reasons to not love this time of year for some people. And it's okay. It's okay. We can all get through it together to the best of our ability.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. Hopefully we'll see you all again in December. Thank you.